The human forged the blade of fire, and the alien guardian swore to protect him forever. Part 1. The first ember was born in silence. A faint spark glowed in the hollow of the forge, deep within the valley of stones where no wind ever touched the ground. The human stood before it, his hands covered in black dust, his eyes fixed upon the molten metal that pulsed like a living heart. His name was Kyle, a smith of no renown, a wanderer whose people had long been forgotten by the stars. He had come to the world of Ellerith to escape the wars of men, but fate had followed him in the form of a legend older than time. The forge itself was not built by human hands. It was carved within the remains of an ancient meteorite said to have fallen from the heart of a dying sun. Its walls whispered with strange energy that bent light and sound. Every tool within it hummed, as if waiting for someone worthy to awaken them. Kale had found it by accident, while seeking shelter from a storm that glowed, red as blood. For days he studied the symbols etched upon the walls. He could not read their meaning, but he felt their rhythm, the beat of fire and soul combined. He melted steel in ways he had never known. The flames spoke in bursts of color. Gold turned to crimson, then to a deep violet that made his skin tingle. Something within the forge wanted to create something beyond mortal reach, a weapon that would bind two souls together through eternity. And then she appeared. The air shimmered behind him as if space itself bent to reveal her tall and radiant. Her form was of silver skin, marked with faint lines of gold light that pulsed in time with the forge. Her eyes burned like twin suns, yet were calm as water. She was not human, Kale had seen. No living being of her kind before she spoke without words, her voice flowing directly into his mind. "Who awakens the heart of fire?" she asked. Kale dropped his hammer and stepped back. "I am only a smith," he said, though his lips barely moved. Her presence was not of threat, but of command. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter as she approached. "You are chosen by the forge," she said. "You have touched the core of Ellerith, and it has answered." Kale stared in disbelief. "I only wanted to make a blade strong, enough to survive this world." He said, "I did not seek any destiny. Destiny seeks those who do not seek it," she replied. "You stand in the Hall of Embers, the sacred womb of the blade of fire." Her eyes softened as she gazed at the molten metal. "Long ago, my people swore that if the forge ever burned again, we would rise to guard the one who lit it." Kale frowned. "Guard me. Why would I need protection? Because the fire you have awakened will call them," she said. The shadowless, the forge trembled. The flame shifted to deep black for a breath before returning to red. Kyle's heart thudded in his chest. "What are they? Beings of the void," she said. "They devour light worlds and souls. They seek the flame that can undo them." Kyle looked again at the molten core and saw for the first time a shape forming within. It was not steel. It was something beyond metal, something alive. He could see his reflection flicker across its surface. Yet it was not his face, but that of another with golden eyes. "Who are you, Kale?" asked softly. "I am Serath," she said, bowing slightly, her movements like a dance guardian of the Ember Oath, sworn before the first flame to protect the maker of the blade of fire until the last breath of the universe. Kyle was silent for a long time. Then he said, "If that is true, then we forge together." The forge roared as if hearing his vow. The molten core rose in a pillar of flame that did not burn him. Serath stepped beside him and extended her hands. Her palms glowed, and from them poured a light that merged with the metal. Kale lifted his hammer, his arms trembling from the heat. Together they struck, Each strike sang like thunder through the cavern. Each spark danced like a soul freed from bondage. The blade of fire began to take shape, its form long and curved, its edge bright as dawn. Sarath whispered words in her ancient tongue, and Kale followed their rhythm with his hammer. For hours they worked until sweat and light became one. At last the blade was whole. Kale lifted it high, and felt its heat surge through his veins. It did not burn. It breathed. The forge fell silent. The air cooled, and Sarath knelt before him. "The blade of fire is born," she said, "and I am bound to thee." Kale felt uneasy bound. "What does that mean?" "Your life is now tied to mine," she said. "So long as you live, I live. If you die, I fade." Kyle's chest tightened. "That is too much for anyone to bear." "It is not a burden," she said, rising. "It is purpose." He looked at the blade and saw faint runes carved into it, though. He had never touched it with a chisel. They glowed with the same gold light that traced Sarath's skin. He whispered, "What do they mean?" "They are your name," she said, written in the language of stars. Before he could reply, the ground shuddered. A distant roar echoed through the valley. The stones outside split as a dark mist began to rise. Sarath's eyes turned bright white. "They have come," she said. "The shadowless have scented the flame." Kale tightened his grip on the blade. "How do we fight them with fire and will?" She said, "Do not fear the darkness, for the blade will burn it away." The entrance of the forge shattered as the first of the creatures emerged. They had no shape, only outlines of shifting black forms with hollow eyes that devoured light. Itself, Kyle swung the blade, and it ignited instantly, a ribbon of flame slashing through the air. The creatures shrieked as the fire touched them, turning into ash and smoke. Sarath moved beside him, her hands forming arcs of golden light that struck. Like lightning, together they fought through the night. The sky above burned with red lightning. Every blow Kale struck fed the flame brighter. The blade sang louder as if alive. When dawn came, only silence remained. The valley was scorched. Black Kale fell to his knees exhausted. The blade dimmed but still warm. Sarath stood beside him, her body marked with faint burns that healed as he watched. "You saved me," Kale said weakly. "No." She said, "You saved us both." He looked at her. "What now?" Now she said softly, "We keep the flame alive, for the universe has seen it once again, and others will come." Kale nodded slowly. "Then let them come." For many days they traveled across the lands of Elerith. They found villages ruined by the shadowless and people who feared. The night Kale used the blade of fire to drive away the darkness, while Sarath taught him the songs of her kind. He learned that her people once ruled this world before the stars turned cold. They had hidden their knowledge within the forge, waiting for one who could awaken it. And so the legend grew. They called him the Fire-Bearer and her the Eternal Guardian. Together, they became symbols of hope. But deep within Kale's heart, a question lingered. If their lives were bound, could she ever be free? And if the blade was meant to destroy the shadowless, what would become of them once the last shadow fell? Sarath never spoke of it, but sometimes when she gazed into the fire, her eyes filled with sorrow. The day came when they reached the edge of the world, a place where the sea burned with eternal flame. There stood a monument of black stone, etched with the sigil of the forge. Sarath paused before it. "This is where the first guardian fell," she whispered. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then, we will not let another fall." The wind shifted. The sea fire flickered, and from the horizon rose a shadow larger than the sky itself. A being so vast, it blotted out the light. Sarath's voice trembled. The shadowless king, Kale, gripped the blade of fire. "Then it is time." The blade flared white, and the flames of the sea rose in answer. The sea of fire roared as the shadowless king rose above it. Its form was not flesh nor smoke, but a moving void that devoured the light around it. Where it moved, the sky itself folded inward, as if afraid to exist near such hunger. Kale stood upon the black stone, his hair whipped by waves of heat. Sarath floated beside him, her eyes bright as twin stars and her voice steady. Despite the trembling earth, Kyle, she said, "The blade of fire burns with your spirit alone. Hold your will firm or all will be lost." He raised the sword high, and the flame extended far into the clouds. The heat made the air ripple, yet he felt no pain, only strength flowing through his veins. The bond between him and Sarath pulsed like a living current. The shadowless king spoke in a sound that was neither voice nor echo, but pure despair. "You forge light in a dying cosmos," it said. "You are nothing." Before the hunger of the void, Kale shouted, "Then I will feed you light until you choke on it." He charged across the molten, stone leaping into the air. The blade of fire blazed like a comet and struck against the vast darkness. A shock wave split the sea of flame, and towers of molten fire spiraled toward the sky. The king reeled but did not fall. Its tendrils lashed outward, each one like a storm of night. Sarath spread her arms wide, forming a shield of golden light. The tendrils struck it, and the air screamed. She strained under the force, the light flickering, but she held on. Kale turned and saw her pain. "Sarath," he cried. "Hold on." She looked at him and smiled faintly. "Do not look back." Kyle struck true. He gritted his teeth and drove forward, his heart pounding with the rhythm of the forge. Every step echoed like thunder through his soul. He slashed again and again, each blow tearing pieces of darkness away, until the king howled in rage. But the void began to feed on the very light of the blade. The flame dimmed. Kale's breath faltered. He fell to one knee, his strength nearly spent. Sarath flew to him, her hands glowing, brighter than ever before. "The bond between us must be complete," she said. "Let our souls merge for one final strike." Kale looked at her in disbelief. "If you do this, you may not return." "Nor will you," she said. "But together we may end the endless night." He lowered his head. "Then let it be." So, she placed her palms over his heart, and light erupted from both of them. Their forms began to dissolve into pure energy. The forge within his soul reignited. Flames of gold and white swirled around them, forming a spiral that pierced the heavens. The shadowless king recoiled, but it was too late. Kale's voice roared across the burning sea. "For every world you have swallowed, I give you fire." The blade of fire transformed, its edge became a beam of living light. Kale and Sarath moved as one, their voices joined in an ancient song that shook the stars themselves. The blade struck the heart of the void. The explosion was silent, yet it filled all creation with light. When the brightness faded, Kale lay upon the black stone. The sea of fire was gone, replaced by calm water that reflected a dawn sky. The shadowless king was no more. Only gentle ashes drifted across the waves like falling petals. Kale tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy. The blade lay beside him, still warm but faintly glowing. He turned his head, searching for Sarath. She knelt a short distance away, her body fading into motes of golden light. "Sarath, no," he whispered. She smiled, her expression peaceful. "The void is gone," she said softly, and, "My oath fulfilled, do not leave," he said, his throat tightening. "You said our lives were bound. They are," she whispered. "But bonds can become wings." He crawled toward her, each movement slow as the strength left his body. When he reached her, she lifted her hand and touched his cheek. "You have given my people peace," she said, and the stars will remember your name. Kale's vision blurred. Stay, he murmured. We can rebuild together. Her eyes glimmered with warmth. The fire will guide you, she said, and though I fade, I will not truly die for. I live in every spark you forge. Her form dissolved completely, leaving behind a faint shimmer that settled upon the blade of fire. Kale held it close, tears burning down his face. Though no sound came from him, the wind blew softly, carrying her final whisper. I will protect you forever. He remained there until the sun stood high above the calm waters. When he finally rose, the world seemed different, brighter, yet quieter. The blade felt lighter in his hand, almost alive. He could still feel her within its warmth. Kale wandered across the reborn lands. Wherever he went, the soil grew fertile, the skies clear. People came to him asking how he had survived the fall of the Shadowless. He never spoke of Serath in full. He only said the fire was not meant to destroy, but to remind. Years passed. Villages became cities. The story of the fire-bearer turned into legend and then into myth. Some said he ascended to the heavens. Others said he still walked among the stars, forging light where darkness dared to return. Yet one night, under a silver sky, Kale returned to the valley where it all began. The forge of the fallen meteor still stood silent and cold. He placed the blade of fire upon the anvil and whispered, I kept it, alive. Serath. The forge answered with a single flicker of flame. Kale smiled and sat beside it, closing his eyes. When the villagers found the forge later, they discovered a statue of a man and a woman of light and shadow, standing together holding a single glowing blade between them. They called it the Monument of the Eternal Flame. 1,000 years passed, and the world changed again. The descendants of men and the lost kin of Serath once more shared the skies. They spoke of the ancient guardian, who swore to protect the human smith who forged the blade of fire. Children were taught that light and darkness were not enemies, but partners in the dance of existence, and in the heart of every forge across every world, the same spark would sometimes flicker on its own. A whisper in the heat would echo through the air. Hold your will firm, for the fire remembers. In another age, when stars began to dim once more, a young apprentice named Aaron discovered the forgotten meteor forge. He was not unlike Kale, curious and kind. When he entered, he felt the same warmth, though he could not explain it. The walls glowed faintly, and he heard a voice gentle as wind through crystal. Welcome, child of fire. Aaron froze his hammer in his hand. Who are you? He asked. I'm the flame that never dies, the voice said, and I have waited for another bearer. A figure appeared before him, formed from pure light. It was not entirely human nor alien, but something between. She looked at him with familiar golden eyes and said, The blade of fire must rise again. Aaron stepped closer, his heart racing. Who forged it before me? A man named Kale, she said with a tender smile, and he was not alone. Aaron reached toward the anvil where the faint outline of the legendary blade rested. As his fingers brushed the surface, it reignited, bursting into brilliant light. He felt warmth spread through his soul and heard two voices speaking as one. Fire and soul are one flame and heart eternal, and so the cycle began anew. The universe watched as another human took the oath of the forge. The guardian of light was reborn, and the eternal promise of Serath continued through time. Every 1,000 years the blade would choose its bearer. Every time the flame would whisper the same vow. Wherever there is darkness, I will be there. Wherever there is fire, I will guard it. Somewhere beyond the veil of stars where souls of guardians rest. Kale and Serath watched, their hands intertwined as twin sparks drifting through eternity. They saw their legacy, burning brightly across galaxies, Sarath looked at him and said softly, "You see, Kale, the fire truly never dies." Kale smiled, his eyes filled with the warmth of endless dawn. "Then let it burn forever," he said, and the stars answered by shining brighter than they ever had before. Thus ended the tale of the human who forged the blade of fire and the alien guardian who swore to protect him forever. Yet every flame that burns carries their memory. Every forge that glows holds a piece of their light. And every heart that dares to fight the darkness becomes a child of their boundless fire, for the universe is vast, but one truth remains. A single spark born of courage and love can outshine eternity itself.